morning saying he wants to move the meeting to tomorrow, and that he hasn't been significant updates since yesterday. So I've sent a message and said, basically finding out, well, arranging for him to come sit in the lab from tomorrow to
Okay.
see if that will help him as well. Yeah. So I mean, then I thought, okay, if he can't join us this morning, then maybe this is the perfect opportunity to uh, continue the discussion that you started
Okay.
yesterday.
Sure. All right. Sure. Good. So what? Yeah. So I asked you in the message, right, in Slack. What is your thoughts, and also like to get your feedback. To know like how do you
I,
feel in
so,
this past 2 weeks and the current status?
so I think his progress is definitely faster than it was before. I'm not sure if it's just the daily updates that it's helping, or if he's also getting helping from someone else.
I see.
I
Okay.
mean, there was times that I thought, wow, I'm surprised you managed to do this since the last meeting we had, given some of the previous, lack of progress that he's had. Um, I think the thing which I'm struggling to pinpoint is what his progress should be. And let me qualify that. So I've had students where you basically give them a rough idea and they go back for a week and come back and they've built the whole system, right?
Okay. Are you
Um,
talking about John Gilmer?
yeah, yeah, a bit, yeah. And maybe Daniel was a bit like that as well. But they were
Okay. Okay.
more, yeah. Well, with him, I found that we have to be much more hands-on with, okay, but, and I think we also tend to repeat a lot of the things that we
Right. Right.
think we
Right. I had the same
understand.
feeling. Yes.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, yesterday was a good example of that with the queues, where okay, he's got the fake network now, but that whole part about, but we need a bunch of queues where the messages is being, stored, is the part that he appeared to not get. And maybe, yeah, I mean, maybe if he's in the lab amongst other students, that would help a bit as well, because then he'll be able to see what progress the other students are making. But then I also spoke to Gregor and Karsten on Friday, and got the impression from them that they also have students where they're like PhD students,
I see.
where they're
Okay.
like, you're
I see your
supposed to be
point.
able to, yeah. So I'm like, is it just
So
that the,
you're suspecting this could be a generation thing that
well,
that
yeah,
the
perhaps,
incoming newer students who may not be
yeah.
as skilled or as immersed in the technical details in the hands-on part.
Well, I think I mean, for Victory himself, I mean, he comes from a University of Technology background. So and I mean, some of my other colleagues have had the experience that the University of Technology students require more work than which comes through the traditional university.
Okay,
And
I see.
I have found that a bit with Victory. But on the other hand, I mean, Victory is he's very passionate and very excited about it. And I think he is working very hard to make this work.
He's got the
So
drive, yeah, and the motivation.
yes, yeah. So that's why but yeah, I think the trick for me is finding out, what should his progress be? And is he working, how can we help him make better progress type of thing.
Right,
Um,
right, right. Okay, okay. All right.
but I
So,
definitely think the
all right.
sprint has been helping. The sprint has
Okay,
definitely
okay.
been
All
helping.
right. Okay. That's good. That's good to hear. All right. So, I guess I can share a bit about my observation as well. Okay. Which is, I think he definitely is not as experienced. I think in terms of the actual coding aspect, the implementation part, or the debugging.
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
That I think is kind of obvious from, you know, he is good with the high level concept. So, in some hand, that shows seems to be his strength, that he can grasp the high level concepts like rather quickly. Okay. but when doing the actual implementation details, I think that's where he struggles. Okay.
Mm.
So obviously, I think there are two approaches to this. One is to help him to gain the necessary skills, the experience, as able as quickly as possible to basically get him up to speed, right? So he can do this himself, right? That's one. The other is to basically find someone to help, okay, who can perhaps help or even cover, like especially the more technical, the more implementation aspect of things. Okay, so but either way, I think try to build up a team around Victory.
Mm.
Okay, I mean, and they could also be work on maybe different aspects of the, I guess, of the whole vast verse thing. Okay, so to speak. I think that is probably the way to go. Okay, because in the long term, I think this is another aspect we can discuss a bit about, which is where do we really want to take this, like forward? Let's
Yes.
say not
Yes. Yeah.
just in Victory's, his years as a PhD student, but in fact, how can we take this, like really far, really far, like let's say 3, 5, 10 years down the road, right? And
Mm.
where would we like to see this progressing towards, right? I think that becomes a question for us to answer that, right? Okay. And I mean, I think we all have the idea. I mean, at least I think we do have some ideas about what this potentially can become, right? And or the potential impact it can have. But I think right now the tricky part is, even for us, is to figure out how can we get this from a sort of a research concept, right? I mean, you see, all the way into like really, I think if this is done right, we're talking about an ecosystem
Yes.
of
Yeah.
software developers, of even companies and open source developers, and companies that are basically providing commercial services up top of
Mm.
this infrastructure, right? And potentially, we like to see a positive feedback loop, right?
Mm.
Where the commercial successful companies, they can feed back to the development and the building of the community, and the community can contribute the technical tools, right? And the open in the openness, right? Sort of in the open space, open architecture, open libraries, right? So that it's for the benefit of the public good. I think that is something. I think that is kind of the crucial question we have to ask ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can we build towards that? And I don't think this is any single person's effort, right? Or even a single team or university, right? Or a company's effort. I think we're potentially talking about an ecosystem here.
Yeah.
And obviously, the question now is, how can we start from where we have now, right? Basically, I do have a leg in the industry, although my company is not doing work directly in the space now yet. Okay, and you are in the academia, right? So I'm also thinking about, like, I mean, already we are a small ecosystem of sorts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Where you see, right now it's just a matter of how can we maybe get this multiply, right, and to scale up and to get more players and more interested parties to get involved in, right? And the way I am thinking about this problem, I just like to share, I mean, the thought process is, again, something I learned from Dan Sullivan, the who, not how. I mean,
Yeah.
he's the founder of I share about Strategic Coach, right? And,
Yeah.
I have just signed up to become a member.
That's very cool, by the way.
Yes, that's I mean, it's their most entry level, program. They have 3 levels. This is called a signature program, and they have like and it won't start in October. It's actually not it's quite a price tag. It's actually 10,000 US dollar
Oh
to
wow. Oh, okay.
to get involved. Okay. So, but you can imagine, like the kind of caliber, right? The participants, the members, right, and the network
Yes,
that this represents,
precisely. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I think this is also a good point where I mean we can think about how we can really enlarge this. And the key concept here, I think, is the who, not how thinking, which is instead of trying to do everything by ourselves. I think this is what Dan is preaching and telling people about. Like he shared this story, just share quickly, of one of his students, like really bright, like very able. He can do marketing well. He can do product development. He can do sales. He can do team building. Like everything, he's just good at. He has started 6 companies in 2 years. Okay,
Wow.
but then like he told Dan, his problem is that he cannot find capable executives to handle the companies. Like he has so many
Mhm.
ideas, but he isn't able to find the capable people to to manage the company for him. Okay, so he's all stressed out, all busy, stretch out, all that. And Dan basically told him in feedback that you should just do one thing well
Yeah.
and find collaborators for the rest. Okay, so I think this is the core thinking I'd like to bring forward, is that what is the one thing perhaps we can do well now, but what are the other aspects that it's best to find the best persons to get involved with, the best collaborators in the space,
Mm.
right? So that they can take care of the other aspects, right? And while still growing. So I guess I'd like to pose these questions and maybe ask you, like what is your thoughts?
So I mean, so when you talked about where do we want to take this type of thing and to build the ecosystem, the thing that came to me was, okay, but we kind of need like a trigger or like an initial thing that will
An
make
application.
people.
Are you talking about an
Yes.
application? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, we I was thinking basically a demo system or a demo application, and then with a library which says you can do this, see it works, and here's the library which allows you to do that with all the documentation and all that kind of stuff, which helps people get started, type of thing. I had a colleague who developed some software that allows you to do superconducting circuit analysis and layout. And I remember, well, he once told me that the way he got it into the market or into people adopting it was basically by visiting a bunch of labs and showing sitting with the PhD students and helping them get it started. Because once they saw the benefit of it, they started using it. But anyway, so that's why I was thinking, okay, uh, application that people can see with a library which allows them to use it. Okay, and I think I mean, I think a strength for me at least is, doing that technical development and the, you know, I'm not sure, building the system or building at least a demo of the system, which will demonstrate that the system will work. Yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
think, yeah. So I think the part, yeah. I think my strength, something which is not my strength, I think, is actually the marketing, which is
Okay.
basically,
Okay. I see.
um,
Okay.
getting other people. I mean, so that taxi application which I posted on Vastverse, I don't know if you saw that.
Okay.
So I discussed this with that colleague of mine and gave a brief description of Spatial Pub Sub and how we're thinking of doing that. And then he basically hooked us into this whole socio-economic changing Africa type of thing, which
I
puts a
see.
really, really good, I think, spin on the whole. This is the potential on what it is. So I think he's an example for someone I think which would be a good collaborator who's got a good network, at least in our local South African
I see.
context.
So you're talking about the pitching, the marketing part, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
He's got a research contract with one of the cell phone companies here, and he discussed it with him, and they already said, oh, they're happy to donate some computing power for Alida, or for that type of stuff, that project with the taxis. So I mean, I was actually a bit surprised about how easily, or how, just by talking to him a bit, and how easily that actually came together. And I was also, I mean, pleasantly surprised when Anicio was interested and joined the meeting and sounded quite interested in getting involved. I think part of the challenge for me now is basically keeping the momentum going, and
Okay.
basically trying, and also, determining, okay, but where exactly is it that we want to get to, and what are these steps in order to get there.
Okay. I
So
see.
I
Okay.
so I think if we have something like, let's get the demo application going with a open source library, which is there, and which has got some kind of a website where people can access it and see a demonstration of the application. I think, and we put some kind of a deadline, like we want to get this, we want to have this by September, or we want to have this by December or something like that. Then I think that puts a, what do you call it, nice
Pressure, right?
measurable.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, and it's
A
like, we want
milestone.
to
A
get this.
milestone. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
precisely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
It's a
and I think
specific
because,
goal, right? A very specific goal. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, once we had that meeting with Anicio, I'm like, okay, great, we've got someone that's interested, but what do we do with him now?
Okay. Okay. I see. All right. Okay.
So
I see. All right. All right.
that,
Herman, I think I can feedback now about like this is the missing piece. I think we need to find an application partner.
yes,
Okay. And someone who actually knows a particular space really, really well. Okay. That's say it could be the delivery sector, it could be the taxi sector. Okay. Or it could be some kind of sector, but essentially an application domain. And we have to find like the expert. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like what is a space that basically our work could tremendously help, right?
yes,
And I think we should probably approach this expert, and to at least, I mean, even if, I mean, all they have to do is just to be the user of what we build, or
yeah,
to provide feedback for the prototype, and then we can have a very definite measurable goal to sprint towards. Okay, because a lot of the times, the reason why I'm raising this up is because I can use my own example, okay, of building
mhm,
our crypto index fund, is because without an actual end use case that is like sitting there, a lot of the design decisions, you don't know how to make them, and you can only make them randomly, right?
yes,
But
yeah,
if you have a specific end scenario result that you're trying to achieve and move towards, a lot of the questions become easier to answer, and
yes,
particularly with some of the trade-offs that you necessarily have to face and meet and have to make. Okay, so I find it always good to have like a really strong like an end scenario requirement, so to
okay,
speak. Okay, and I think we have to find that outside of ourselves. Okay,
yes, yeah,
because unless we are the users or the applications, right? But the scenarios we have so far think of, like taxi or delivery, I don't think we are part of that industry.
no, we're not.
Okay,
No.
right. You see, so I think that becomes clear now. Is that maybe, I don't know? Do you think you can maybe find someone? I mean, best in South Africa, right?
So good.
I'm saying best if this is in South Africa, right?
Yes, yeah. I
Because
mean,
right.
so yeah, yeah. So that's why I mean, when I discussed this with my colleague of mine who's involved in the metering and in the taxi industry, I was actually thinking, if we have these people who are actually using it. So their problem is basically that you have these. It's a weird thing in South Africa, but apparently the taxis don't actually drive off until they're full, right? So what happens is you've got a bunch of these taxis sitting around half half empty or completely empty, and you've got a bunch of passengers who wants to get somewhere, and the two groups, don't meet or something
I
like that.
see. So you're talking about carpooling, some kind of carpooling?
Well, yeah, it is a form of carpooling. So, I mean, we've got these minibus taxis, which is kind of a informal public transport sector. In other words, it's not run by government or something like it. It's run by, private businessmen or whatever. But there's a whole culture which is built up around it. Like, for instance, what happens is if you get into a taxi, the it's considered impolite to get out of the taxi before it drives off. So sometimes what happens, and I was also surprised to hear this, is that you would get into a taxi and wait 30 minutes before the taxi actually drives off. Yeah, I know. It's like,
Is it because it needs to wait for more passengers to join?
yes, yeah, precisely,
Ah,
yeah.
okay.
So,
Wow,
and there's like
then
a,
I think a system, like a Uber kind of Uber
yes,
for carpooling,
yes,
Uber for
precisely,
carpooling. I think
precisely, yeah,
like a Uber for coupling would be definitely of help,
yeah,
right? Because then you
yeah,
can just look for like who are the nearby people I can just grab quickly, right? Right?
precisely, yeah.
Ah, okay, okay. I think this
And
is great. I didn't know this problem exists in South Africa, but
yeah,
now you're mentioning, I think this actually, if we can solve this, that's a perfect use case, actually.
yeah. And this is the thing that my colleague is involved, and he's very, very good at getting a
Oh,
bunch of people involved
oh,
in a project.
okay,
He's the
okay.
one that got the cell phone company to say yes, they want to be involved with something like this as well.
Oh,
And he's also quite excited about the possibility. So he might not be the expert, but I
okay.
think he has
Access
connections
to the
into,
right. Okay.
yes,
Okay. Good.
precisely.
Good. Good. All right. So I think that's the person we have to look for then. Ask your
Yeah.
colleague to recommend like that. I mean, if we can find a reputable domain expert in this space,
Yes.
like maybe the expert at the national level, or
Yeah.
like well known, then
Yeah.
and that person know that we intend to solve this. We believe we have a solution. I mean, we believe we know how to solve this with
Yes.
a technical solution essentially, right? And we simply like him to be our advisor and to
Yeah.
provide feedback, right? And at the
Yes.
right time, maybe to do some pilot testing with actual
Yes.
taxi drivers, for example, right?
Yeah.
I think
That's the idea.
that's the thing we need. That's the
Yeah.
who we need to look for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. 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 All right. So I think that's excellent because I think with that and a clear end goal, in application, I think it will also be easier, to determine like how to build up this team around Victor. Okay,
Yeah.
that could involve more than just programmers because potentially this could involve some kind of designers, right? User interface designer, user experience designers, um, like I guess marketeers, okay, and educators, and obviously developers as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. All right. Okay. Great. All right. So should we do that? I mean,
Yeah.
and
I mean, yeah.
and is there any other people you think that would be helpful to sort of bring onto the table, or do you think that would be needed?
So okay, so I think getting some of the cell phone companies could be useful because I think initially they would be able to help with some
With the costs of the network?
yes, but also perhaps with advising in terms of coverage.
I see.
Because I think
Okay.
the one unknown in this whole system is how well will the communication work, and you need a certain density of vehicles before you have good communication, or will you have to put some infrastructure down to, read some of the messages when some of the nodes are isolated and stuff like that. But I mean, we can get that as well through this colleague of mine because he's got a connection with some of the
Okay,
cell phone
sure, sure.
companies as
All right,
well.
all right. Okay, good.
Um,
So,
and yeah, I think the other thing, I mean, when you ask who else which we should get involved, the question I first ask myself is what exactly is all the things that we need to do to get there. So I'm the which brings me back to that question I had in middle of April about where exactly are we on our way to, and what are all the, what do we need? We need a, we need a website. So we need someone that can help us set up a website which will, not look like something out of the 80s, but which, which is, I mean, I don't
I
think you need
see.
like a
Okay, I
fancy
see, I see.
website.
A project site, essentially, a project
Yes,
website.
and then we need to figure out, okay, but what will the demo look like? What will it, what's going to be involved with that? And then in terms of the open source library that we want to release, we want to, what exactly will how will it work? Will it be something that people can deploy themselves? Do we want to give them like a Docker virtual machine host or something just to demonstrate it? So the question I'm first asking is what exactly is the components we actually want to release at some kind of a milestone, and once we know that, we can say, okay, but we need someone to help us developing that. We need someone that will, market it a bit. We need someone to take responsibility for this aspect. So I think I guess the question I think we first need to answer is, what is it that we want to deliver
To
at
actually
this
build,
milestone?
right? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I think for this, what we need actually is, I guess, a product person, a product designer. Okay.
Yeah.
For what you just described, this is actually the role of a product designer. Okay.
Okay.
And someone who basically understands the user problem and can translate that into a solution design. Usually this is in the form of some mock-up image, okay,
Okay.
and user flow, okay. Usually that would, I mean, this person may or may not be the UI UX designer, but someone who can definitely, work with and produce sort of like a what they call wireframe,
Yes. Yeah.
wireframe design for the end result application. Okay, so I think this is the other guy we need to look for. Okay, basically a product designer. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you have any ideas, but I can potentially also ask around to see if I'm may be able to find someone, okay, who can or who might be interested to work on this. Okay.
I'll ask our innovation. Well, I'll ask our innovation lab if they have someone that could help with this. And I've got that other Gertjan, I think he has also got quite a network in the innovation community in Stellenbosch. So he might also
Okay.
know of someone
Okay.
who can help with that.
All right. Nice. Nice. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, all right. Great. Thanks. That's very helpful. I think so we want to address a very specific problem of Uberizing carpooling service.
Yes.
Okay, and this is for the specific for the South Africa, right? The taxi market, and
Yeah.
I think this is also good because it does not compete. It's not like Uber that will compete.
Yes, precisely. Yeah.
This
And I
is
think
to
the
help
other,
them.
yeah, and I think because if it's not competing with the taxi industry and actually helps them find passengers more quickly,
Right, right.
then everyone wins here. So I think, because I remember my colleague he wanted to install some devices on the taxis in order to measure their the speed that they were driving, and initially they were very excited about it, and then when he actually came to the point where he wanted to do it, they realized, but wait a minute, then they'll have a record of how fast we drive. And they're like, okay, maybe that's not a
Like
good idea type
privacy.
of thing. Yeah.
I
Are you going to
see. I
use
see.
give this information to the police type of thing? Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So,
All right. Okay. Good. And we do have a selling point in which we might be able to make this like decentralized, right? So
yes.
that
Yeah.
the data does not, is not collected or being used by any central authority or central provider.
Yeah.
All right.
Precisely, yeah.
Okay. Nice. All right. Good. All right. So let's find the right tools then. Okay. And,
Okay. I'm
okay.
gonna speak with that other colleague of mine and to see if we can get some more concrete meetings with the application partner, and then I'll speak to my other colleague to see if we can find some kind of a product designer that will help us, plan what it is, what this, and then we can that will, I think, help us identify other people that we need.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Great. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, let's move this the next step. Okay, towards
Cool.
towards the metaverse.
Cool.
Friendly
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Herman. All right, so
Okay,
tomorrow,
Shigen.
right? Tomorrow at the same time.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Talk then. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Take care. Bye bye.